Thank you, Chamberlain. Welcome to Abuja. Standing by with us is the Executive Director for the West African Network for Peace Building in Accra, Ghana, Dr. Chukwuemeka Eze. You're very welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Well, we know that this issue of the farmer-herdsman clashes goes beyond Nigeria's borders into the West African sub-region. Can you give us a sense of what you've seen from your vantage point?
Well, I think that probably that is the missing link in the ongoing efforts to address this issue. I'm amazed that Nigeria, as the West Africa hegemony, is trying to treat this as a local issue. I think that there is a reason why the West African region came together under an umbrella called ECOWAS. And if this cuts across the entire Sahel region, as it were, I think it is very important that they begin to look at it as a community issue rather than a Nigerian localized issue. And that's why I think that it is also important that while the conferences are going on, we need to understand that the conflict is not intelligent enough to continue to wait. And I think it's the late Nelson Mandela that once said that you cannot address an issue with the same mindset that started it. So I am not sure how much analysis have gone into the issue of herders' conflict in Nigeria and how they see the connection between what is happening in Nigeria and what is happening in other countries in West Africa. So the first question to ask is, what is the relationship between what is going on and population explosion in the West Africa sub-region? What is going on between climate change and the movement of the nomads? Perhaps the third question is there an international conspiracy against West Africa economic explosion and development? And if that is so, which are the countries that these agents are addressing?
Dr. Eze, you know, as the conversation has unfolded within Nigeria, what we see is, yes, we hear experts talk about climate change as a factor. We hear experts talk about the kind of the nomadic culture of the Fulani, of the herdsmen, as a factor. But then it's always kind of secondary to the notion that there is an ethnic conspiracy. This is the one that you hear the most. Even at the political level, when you hear some of the state executives who have been affected by this, it comes down to an ethnic conspiracy against certain ethnic groups in the country. Now, if it's viewed through that prism, do you think that we're going to be able to get to a final solution?
Unfortunately, I'm going to differ. And that's why I said you cannot address the conflict with the same mindset that started it. The mindset that started it is that ethnic branding. If we continue to do the ethnic branding, it will be difficult to address it. And I am very much convinced that beyond the ethnic branding, there are issues that are very fundamental that need to be addressed. We need to talk more about climate change. Why is it that this is happening more now? Is there a trend that follows what is happening in the country or around the region? How come there is this connection between the nomads around the West Africa sub-region, and how come every country wants to address it internally? While it is important to show force and to show that the state is in charge, how much have we even carried those who are involved along? You cannot shave a man's or a woman's hair behind the person.
The Global Terrorism Index released a report which said that after ISIL, that the Taliban, Al-Shabaab is second, and Boko Haram is third, and Fulani herdsmen, it did say Fulani herdsmen, is the fourth deadliest terror group in the world. Now, when you look at that, the report cited a series of violent conflicts between farmers and Fulani herdsmen in Mali, in Mauritania, in Ghana, in Ivory Coast, and some other countries. Now, you're in Ghana. We've seen some outbreaks of violence in Ghana. How have Ghanaian authorities dealt with this issue? And do you think that they have worked effectively with their neighbors to deal with the issue?
Not to the best of my knowledge to a holistic level. I think what has happened is there has been a containment of the issue, without addressing the fundamentals. But if you look at the countries that you have mentioned, there's something that they have in common. They are almost all in the Sahel region, which also gives you an idea about the issues relating to climate change that I've talked about. But beyond that also is that there's becoming a trend that almost all the countries where you're having the headers conflict, they also have issues relating to violent extremism. So what does that tell us? That also tells us that I was very convinced that at the end of the day, Nigeria was going to address the issue of Boko Haram, or at least within the Lake Chad Basin, they were going to address the issue of Boko Haram. What I was not convinced about is what that will lead to. So there is also a theory that suggests, and perhaps rightly so, that this is an aftermath of Boko Haram and other terrorist cells around the Sahel region. So the countries you have mentioned, yes, they are all in the Sahel, but there is also something they have in common. And that's also something that we need to look at. Look at the kind of arms and ammunition that they are using. Does that represent, or does that have any semblance with the kind of arms that Boko Haram and other terrorist cells in the Sahel region we are using? The answer to my mind is yes.